afternoon, and thank you for coming. I'm Jason Wilkenfeld, the co-chair of the Long Range Planning Committee. A little bit over a year ago, the Oakmont Village Association Board authorized the Long Range Planning Committee to create a draft of a long range plan for Oakmont. And a fair amount of work was done on the plan. It's posted on our website. You're all welcome to look at it. But as we went on with the project, we realized that the most important input which we could get would be from all of you, the residents. So we created, at Lisa Berman's suggestion, what we call a research subcommittee. And the purpose of the research subcommittee, stand up. Was basically to go out through a survey to as many of the residents as we could get to respond to find out, first of all, about the demographics, the current demographics of Oakmont, and also to get their opinions about some of the things which we thought would be important in creating the plan. And it took a really heroic effort by Lisa and also by Sue Dibble. Please stand up, Sue. And Kathy Saxena, who put in literally many dozens of hours, maybe hundreds of hours, in putting, maybe thousands, in putting together the survey and getting people to respond primarily by oatmeal, but email, and also by having people stationed to sign up, and then they're still in the process of compiling all the data and doing an analysis. And the results of this data will be input for the next round of creating the long-range plan, which we hope to have in draft for the board and after the board to the residents sometime later this year. So what we're going to present today is the results of this survey. And if any of you have remember Dragnet, like Sergeant Friday says, what you're going to see today is just the data. There are no conclusions, no recommendations. Those are going to be available when the plan is created. So with that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Kathy and Sue.
Thank you, Jason. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. I need to start with some thank yous, and one of them is to you all for coming inside on this beautiful afternoon, so thank you for being here. I want to thank the Long Range Planning Committee. They had the foresight to think about asking residents what they want. Thank the Board of Directors for its willingness to fund the project and to hear from the entire community. And to the research subcommittee members, my new buds, everybody on that committee, including our able chair, Lisa Berman, Tony Lakowitz, Jason, Art Shostak, John Williston, Andy Altman, and Cassie Turner. So thank you to all of you. This is actually a multi-phase, long-range planning project. We started in the fall, and I'm guessing there were a few of you who came to the listening sessions in September. Seems like eons ago. How many people were at a listening session? Just curious. Good, so we have some repeat offenders here. Very good. In December, we conducted focus groups, conversations with small, targeted groups of Oakmont residents. We conducted 9 focus groups. And then we did this survey in February for about 3.5 weeks, starting on the 1st. A lot of people have asked, where did the questions on the survey come from? And just to be clear, obviously our guiding premise was the work of the Long Range Planning Committee and the board's wishes and desires. But we did take a lot of input from what we heard in the listening sessions, what we heard from the focus groups, as well as suggestions from individual residents. And there are a number of people, and I bet some of you are in the room right now, who have followed us all along and sent us email and suggestions and long missives about what you would like to see. And for that, we are also very, very appreciative. Today, as Jason said, we're going to cover the survey questions. If you remember the survey, you'll know that there were some open ends at the end, and those are still being analyzed, so we haven't included them here today. This was a multi-mode survey. The idea was always to make it as easy as possible for the largest number of Oakmont residents, people in Oakmont Gardens, people who are shut-ins, people who are online, people who are not online, to be able to do the survey. As a result, we used online, which was about 3/4 of our survey responses came in online. We also created a paper survey. We sent out letters to people for whom we did not have email addresses, letting them know the survey was starting and the 4 or 5 different ways that they could participate. We also did phone and personal interviews, and we had a crew of senior nursing students, and Sue will talk more about them, who came over from Sonoma State to help us reach out to people who, for whatever reason, needed some help doing the survey. We completed 1,639 surveys. That's 35% of all 4,634 dues-paying residents that were on the rolls in February. The question kind of comes up sometimes, is that enough? Was that really a big enough group of people to be able to say, this is what we think Oakmont residents want or do or say? And in my experience, it's enough, and I've had a little bit of experience doing surveys over the years. It's enough because we did a huge outreach effort, and I have to acknowledge Lisa Berman's tireless going to meetings, writing press releases, writing articles, and all the work she did to get us emails and to let people know that the survey was coming. Other people contributed as well, but Lisa really spearheaded that effort. The degree of effort that we made is one reason I have confidence in this 35%. There's another reason though, and that is one of the LRPC members about a year ago, Jim Wimet, did an analysis of census data on Oakmont from 2010. So we kind of have a gold standard of comparison for some of the things that we covered in the survey. And I'll talk more about those as we go along. But in general, for some key demographic variables, we are pretty close to what the census does when they unleash enormous amount of resources on these questions. So that is the other reason that I feel reasonably confident that what we have is a reliable representation of opinions of our Oakmont community. What I'm going to cover today, what Sue and I are going to cover today, 3 main areas. First of all, I want to give you a profile of what Oakmont residents are like, the key demographic, housing, and lifestyle patterns that we found through the survey. Then we'll talk about what kinds of activities Oakmonters are engaged in, what their use of our facilities is, and questions in that area. And then the third main area that Sue will cover has to do with Oakmonters' priorities and preferences on a variety of issues, what's important to them, their position on dues and special assessments, and Oakmont services received through the office and the board of directors. I just want to make one point that Jason alluded to. We are here today to talk about the survey results. And as far as what is made of those results as we go forward, we will be combining them with the other pieces of research, the focus groups, the listening sessions. And all of this information will be taken by the Long Range Planning Committee and the board of directors and used and reported back to you as time goes on. So I have to apologize in advance. This is pretty number heavy. So hang on to your chair because we're going to be talking about a lot of percentages as we go on. In general, as we get older, you hear that a lot, right? As we get older, there tend to be more women than men in the population. And that is no less true here in Oakmont. 62% female, 38% male. And this is one of the kind of key demographics that I mentioned, where the 2010 census found 61% female in Oakmont. So we feel pretty good about that comparison. This is the age groups that we found in the survey. 10% of us are 86 and older. 3 people in their hundreds. 27% of us are 76 to 85, and the largest group, 45%, are between 66 and 75. And then 18% are 65 and younger. And that 18% compares with 20% in the 2010 census in Oakmont of 65 or younger. The median age in Oakmont is 72. The range went from a young 47 years old to a couple of people 103 years old. We're mostly retired, which is not really a surprise. We have some somewhat comparable information on people in the labor force, which the census defines as working full-time or unemployed. Their finding in 2010 was 14%, and we have 8% in this survey. It's not very close, but it's not very far away either. So again, just points of comparison as we go along. The vast majority of Oakmonters, again, not too surprising, are non-Hispanic white, 91% according to the survey. And each of the other groups are 2% or less. This chart shows the levels of education for Oakmont residents. Clearly, as you can see, the higher degrees are over on your right, and we're a pretty well-educated group. In fact, 67% of us have a baccalaureate degree or higher, which compares with 44% of non-Latino whites the same age range in California. Health status. We asked people what they thought, how good they thought their physical health was. A majority of us are in excellent or very good health, 27% and 42% respectively, while just 7% say that their health is fair or poor. As we did for education, we were able to find statistics for California that tell us, again, among a comparable group of non-Latino whites in the same age range, 53% say their health is excellent or very good, and 18% say it is fair or poor. So we're better educated and healthier than our counterparts in the rest of the state. We also asked people about how they're doing with their memory. Can't remember why I asked that. Similar numbers to what we saw for physical health. 27% said they think their memory is excellent, and 44%, including me, said it's very good. Certainly not as good as it used to be, but I'm not complaining. And I don't have, unfortunately, a comparison to give you on that question. It was kind of one that we spun off of physical health as of interest to the people that were looking at health-related issues in Oakmont. We wanted to move beyond just the standard demographics, and so we asked some questions about lifestyle and different kinds of experiences and things that people have and do. Respondents rated their quality of life on a scale from 0 to 10. And as you can see, the vast majority of Oakmonters say that their quality of life is quite good. 82% rated it an 8, 9, or 10 on that 0 to 10 scale. I don't have specific data to put up against that, but I do know the research shows that people who are better educated and healthier, no surprise, rate their quality of life higher. So those things are probably interacting in our survey group. And we asked people if they have any hearing loss, and we found that 67% said no, and 33% said yes, they do have hearing loss. So those 33%, we asked a follow-up question. We asked them if they have trouble hearing at OVA events. This has been an issue that's been raised in the last while. What we learned was that 40% of people with hearing loss, for whatever reason, don't use a hearing aid. 23% say that yes, they do have a problem hearing at OVA events, hopefully not this one. And 37% said they do not have a problem hearing at OVA events. So that, because that had been on the agenda, that was a question that people suggested that we ask. Looking again at kind of lifestyle issues, 31% of us live alone, 1% at Oakmont Gardens, and the remaining 68% live with other people. And the vast majority of them, 96%, live with a spouse. We were interested in understanding more about the community, so we were exploring people's sense of connectedness within Oakmont, and found that about 3/4 of us have a close friend here in Oakmont. And we also wanted to understand more about how isolated people were, so we used this question to try to get at that. We asked, you have someone you can call if you need help? And 85% of us say that they do have someone like that they could call in the case of a need. Children, young people. We have 43% of us have children under the 18 who visit us regularly, whereas 57% do not. For those that do have children under 18 visiting, we asked if the children use OVA facilities that are open to them, and 62% with children visiting them said yes, the children do use our facilities. Do residents have pets? Surprising to me, that's, by the way, a young Oakmonter. I don't think he makes the cut on age. 56% do not have a pet. 28% have dogs, 18% cats, and 1% other little critters. We didn't ask people directly about their finances. We didn't ask what's your income. It's a hard question to ask well, especially when you're dealing with people who live on a combination of fixed income and savings, which many of us do. So we opted for a different way of learning something about people's financial situation. We asked, how concerned are you about your finances? And as you can see, a little over half of us are not concerned about our finances right now. 32% are somewhat concerned, and 16% are very concerned. We thought this was kind of interesting. When we asked, how concerned are you about your finances in the future? The numbers for not concerned and somewhat concerned kind of flipped. 32% are not concerned anymore, but that group seems to have moved to the people that are somewhat concerned. 53% are somewhat concerned about finances in the future. I can take a few questions or observations right now if anybody has any. Otherwise, we can move on to the next section. We do have a microphone over to the side. If possible, could we see about getting someone a mic? Or go ahead.
Just real quick,
Yeah.
the people that had ability to call for help, was that inside the house or outside the house?
The question was, the people that had an ability to call others for help, was it inside or outside the house? We didn't make any distinction on that. It was just a general question. Thank you. Anything else? I'm going to go on and talk a little bit about our homes and our housing situation. The first thing we looked at was, where did we come from? Most of us lived just prior to moving to Oakmont, somewhere in Northern California, 70%. 22% of us came from somewhere out of state, which is 3 times the 7% who moved up here from Southern California. And as a native Southern Californian, I should make a snide remark, but I won't.
It's still there. It's okay.
And Sue Dibble worked tirelessly to present this beautiful depiction of where people are moving here from. Again, mostly from California, but the other areas are from, the most frequent are from Oregon, Arizona, Illinois, and New York. We asked people if they are owners or renters. And anybody who knows the rental situation in Oakmont will see that we didn't get as many renters as we should have. When we asked people to do the survey and they gave us an answer about why they didn't want to, many times it was because they were renters and they didn't feel like it pertained to them. So we have a lower than we should number of renters. That being said, we will learn about our 91% owners with more reliability. And one of the things we learned about them is that 16% of them said that they had rented here in Oakmont before buying. As for the percentage that live in an HOA versus an owner-maintained area, 37% said they live in an HOA, 63% owner-maintained, and I'm told that that is pretty close to what the actual division is between those two groups. How long have people in the survey been here in Oakmont? As you can see, about 1/3 of them, 34%, have been here more than 10 years. We go to the other end of the chart, we can see that 44% of residents have lived here 5 years or less. We know how long they've been here, how long are we staying. Most everybody is seeing this as their final resting place. 61% say they will be here for the rest of their lives. A fair number are not sure what their plans are, and just 8% said they plan to leave us within the next 10 years. Are there any questions about the housing information? Yes?
Do you know what the percentage is of renters throughout Oakmont?
Do I know what the percentage of renters is? I'm not going to give you a number because I don't know it, but it's my impression is that it's higher than that. Anybody here know a credible number for that? The OVA office would know. Yes?
It ranges between 25% to 37%.
25% to 37% renters. So we were not as successful as we might have been in getting renters to do the survey. Thank you. Oakmont activities. We We ask people generally, how active are you in Oakmont? About half of us said, oh, I'm somewhat active in Oakmont clubs, events, activities and the like. 19% said they're very active. And then as you can see, 32% not very or not at all active. When we look at that in a little more detail, 71% told us that they belong to at least one club. I was kind of surprised. That seems like quite a lot of participation. The average number of clubs that people belong to is 2. I need to add to my average there. 33% of residents say they serve as volunteers somewhere within Oakmont. I think that's great. That's a tremendous amount of civic participation. We provided a list of several common types of OVA-sponsored events and asked people which ones they participated in the last year. So on this chart, people could check more than one of these. And as you can see, not surprisingly, 77% of us have been to an event here in the Burger Center. Almost half, 47%, say that they've taken a class, which again, I'm surprised, but that's wonderful that people are that engaged. And 13% say they haven't gone to any of the OVA-sponsored events. And a chunk of the people that said some other event mentioned the dog show. We asked people to give us a list of the, check off the list of the indoor facilities that they use. So these are ranked from the most used to the least used. As you can see, the library and Burger got checked by about 2/3 of us. Fitness center, well over half of us say they use the fitness center. Then the East and West Rec, meeting center, computer card, art, and 5% of us know where that billiards room is. As far as outdoor facilities, 59% of us use pools. 34% of us say we're already here, we might as well go in the hot tub. 22% use the picnic areas. And then the others are smaller groups of Oakmounters that do bocce and tennis at 10%, pickleball at 8%, lawn bowling 5%, petanque 2%, and as with the billiards, somebody knows where there's a horseshoe. Place to play that, I guess. 1% do horseshoes. And then there's golf. The Oakmont Golf Course is a large part of our community. Even so, just 19% of us have played at the course in the past 6 months. Another 23% say they played, but it's been 6 months or more, while the majority, 58%, say they've never played golf here. I thought that was aerobics, and then I looked closer, and it's belly dancing. Are there any questions about the activities section of the findings? Yes.
When you asked about the indoor and outdoor activities, did that question ask how frequently or when was the last time? Do you have any idea about frequency of use?
No, we don't have that information. We just asked if you've used that. Noah's asking if, he's asking if we asked people how much use of the facility, indoor or outdoor, did you make? And it's one of those questions where we did want to go there. We did want to get more information, but if you've taken the survey, you know already how long it was. So we may do with just asking people if you use this.
I
Thanks.
question.
Yes.
Would it be possible for you to take a slide back, show the numbers, percentages from the outdoor facilities? Yeah.
That's outdoor facilities usage.
Then the one that had the golf course on it.
A different question, a standalone question on golf. It wasn't part of the list. It was a separate question about how often.
I thought that I read in the Oakmont News, there's some kind of discussion coming up about the golf course and ownership of it. And why would they take that and show the same numbers?
That is, as they say in the civil service, beyond my pay grade. You will have to talk to people on the board and on the long-range planning committee, because I've heard some of the things. I'm sorry. The question was, what about the golf course when the usage that we find in the survey is what it is? That some of the proposals about the relationship between OVA and the golf course that have been bandied about, what's the rationale? And I don't have an answer to that. I'm not even very well versed in that question because I don't play golf. Okay. I'm very pleased to introduce my co-conspirator, Sue Dibble.
So we ask people to think about their priorities. What's important about open? Okay, usually I'm don't have to do this, but obviously I have to eat it, so here we go. So what's important about living in Oakmont? We're going to talk about the preferences for the land, the hillside land on Stonebridge. We're going to talk about our preferences for Annandale Park access. We're going to talk about our preferences for updating the Burger Center. And we're going to talk about ratings of support for 15 new or improved amenities that we have here. So, so here's the first thing. When we're talking about, well, why are you here in Oakmont? What is one of the reasons? And so we have 14 different areas that we ask people to rate how important it was to them. And the first one is being close to your family. And for all of these slides, I'm going to tell you the same thing. The not important is going to be on the top, and very important is going to be on the bottom, and then somewhat and important are right in the middle. So all the slides are set up that way, so you don't have to sit there and go, well, okay, where's important on this slide? Or where's very important on this slide? Because I want you to be able to, and then we'll have a summary slide at the end, so if you miss something, you'll get a chance to see it again. So clubs are not important to 19% of the people and very important to 22% of the people. So you can see most everybody's in the middle. Cultural events, not important to 14, very important to 20, and again, 66% of the people in the middle. Fitness opportunities, not important to 8, very important to 40, and 51% in the middle. Golf, not important to 56, very important to 17, and then 28% in the middle. Whereas neighbors are not important to 2%, very important to 53%, and somewhat important to 45%. Facilities, not important to 3%, very important to 49%, and the rest are in the middle. Open space, 4% not important. They must have come from cities and really thought they were moving to a city, I don't know. Anyway, very important at 51%, and then again, the rest in the middle. Property values, not important to 6%. I wonder if those same 6% are the ones that are going out with toe tags. And very important to 51%. Rural and nature, not important to 3%, very important to 54%, and again, 42% in the middle. Safety, not important to 1%, very important to 74%, and again, the rest in the middle. Single level homes, not important to 6%, I bet they're the young ones that haven't had their knees replaced, and very important to 65%. Social opportunities, not important to 1%, and very important to 35%, but most folks are somewhere in the middle. So what I'm going to show now is the summary slide, which is of the very important and important. Okay. Safety, 96%. Good neighbors, facilities, all the way down. Property values, 85%. So you can see from property values up to safety is 80 and 90%. Then we start social opportunities, fitness opportunities in the mid-70s, and then cultural events and close to family, and and clubs. About half the people, and 30% the golf courses it's important or very important. Access to Annandale Park. If you take a look, not important group is 26%, and the rest spread out. The very important folks think it's very important, 36%. What should we do with the hillside land? Well, leave as open space, 55%. Rebuild the existing exercise equipment and improve the path and the fencing and all that stuff, 17. And then reserve it for development by the OVAs, another 17. And then we had 11% of people who gave us all sorts of comments, but most of them were having to do with expand the community garden, putting some more park-like benches up there, putting some more walking and hiking trails. Other folks wanted a dog park, and other folks wanted a tot lot. So what about this burger center? What do folks want to do with it? Do nothing, let it be, let it fall down. I don't know, that was my interpretation. I'm sorry about that. It's just do nothing or let it be. That means no paint, no updating, no maintenance, no nothing. And then we have a group, 30%, who say, let's maintain it, but do nothing spectacular. No upgrading. Most folks said, please update this with, flooring, a kitchen that works for caterers, a sound system that works, and a blowing system, air that works, and heat that works, and that kind of stuff. And then there was 13% who said, oh, let's make it just a wee bit bigger. Let's have some more meeting rooms, add some space, update the facilities. And then we had 4% who said, let's tear it down and start over. So you see the first one and the bottom one sort of cancel each other out. Okay. Before we go into the possible initiatives, I want to stop this for a minute and see if anybody has any questions on what the slides I've done so far. Nope? Okay, I'm continuing on. We've got 5 indoor and 10 outdoor projects that we're asked to rate on a 0 to 10 scale. So 0 means, oh, for God's sakes, do not do this. And 10 means, I'm here with you, I'm supporting this 999%. And a 1 to 4, okay. And 5 to 7, maybe a little, yeah, that would be nice. And 8 to 10, as I was saying, it's really a strong issue for the interest in the board actually doing this project. So we start, we expand the fitness center. 41% said no, 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 no. And 22% said, oh, yes, this is really important. Expand the art room. 70% said no, 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 no. And then we're back up to 4% said yes, please. I'm actually ad-libbing here. That's not what they said. They said a 8 or a 10 on the scale. Central gathering spot. 31% said no. 27% said yes, please, I support that wholeheartedly. Adult daycare. 58% says no, 10% said yes. This is an interesting, this is the only one that, at least according to the students, that they had a tough time with because people didn't know what adult day health care was. And so they oftentimes would put down no because they really didn't understand the concept. That's what they reported back to me, but the data shows that 58% said no. Indoor pool, 61% said not a priority, and 16% said yes, please. So, the biggest percents of yes, please board consider these things, were a central gathering place, some changes to the fitness center, an indoor pool at 16%, adult day health at 10%, and an art room at 5%. Not a lot of support for some of these issues. And a lot of no's. Art room, 70%, indoor pool, 61%, adult day, 58%, down to the central gathering place at 31%. So when you're looking at both ends of the spectrum, that's what these have and don't have the middle section, but things sort of did go out to either end of the spectrum on these issues. So those are the indoor initiatives. Okay, safety of streets and sidewalks. We were asking the OVA to work with the city to make the streets safer and the sidewalks safer. And 23% it was a priority, 41% didn't feel it was a priority at all. The entrance signage. 63% said, oh, don't spend our money that way, and 9% said, yes, indeed, it's important. Field trips. 43% said no, 18% said, yes, this is a priority. And this is a really interesting one, and I'll tell you this because I've done a couple of further analyses on this one. And the people who thought this was a real priority were older women over 75 who lived alone, older women over 75 who lived alone. They really wanted this activity. Solar panels on facilities, 42% said no, 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 and 20% said yes, it's a priority. Expand the community garden, 57%. Again, no, and 10% said yes, it's a priority. Community-wide Wi-Fi, 44% no, 8 and above, it was 29%. Public art, 72%. You can tell these in alphabetical order. I know you're waiting for pickleball. And public came before it, and it shouldn't have come before pickleball, but that's okay. Public art, 74%, and 3% didn't. It was a very high priority. There, 66% said no on the pickleball courts. 11% said please build them. Dog parks, 62%, 17% said please build them, build it. Tot lot, children's playground I should call it, not a tot lot, said 75% said no and 8% said yes. So, the highest percentages of 8 to 10s, there are 10 items and then these are the highest 5. So Wi-Fi took the cake here. At 29% of people wanted to have some community-wide Wi-Fi. Street safety was number 2 Solar panels, number 3. Having some trips, number 4. And the dog park, number 5. And then the zeros, the highest number of zeros: playground, public art, pickleball, entry sign, dog park. And aren't you glad you all aren't on the board to have to make all these decisions based upon these data? So this is just another way of looking at it. So all 15 things. Wi-Fi takes the cake, the highest, following central gathering place, safe streets, fitness center, solar panels. Those are the top. And it's only 1/5 of the people who rated them the highest level. And then public art room, children's playground, entrance sign, and adult day health, then expand the garden, we're on the lower end of support. And then if you look at the no's, they sort of follow along. We have, again, if you look at this, you can see the range of folks not wanting things. Everybody has their pet project. We know that because not everybody does every activity. Questions about priorities? Oh, I knew there were going to be questions about this.
I just wondered what you mean by community Wi-Fi.
Well, that was the way the question was, and what it meant was in the community space. I'm sorry. Now, for this section, because there are so many questions, could you get up and line up in front of the mics, and then that they can record it, and I don't have to answer, but I will answer this one. She asked me what the community-wide Wi-Fi is, and it was at least in all of the buildings that OVA has. Well, it doesn't work. I can tell you that it doesn't work because we were trying to enter data in the CAC, and every 15 minutes it would go out. So, yeah, workable community Wi-Fi is a real good deal. Yes?
What is meant by central gathering place?
Well, that was interesting because that came through better, the response to that. Pardon? Central gathering place. It's some place where people could hang out, have wine, have coffee, have, you know, visit with each other. Well, who knows? You know, it was, they wanted something other than, you know, that was a drop-in place. At least that's the way the question read. Now, what it's going to turn out to be, I don't know. Yes, Ruth?
So yeah, I'd like to know what, in my mind, when it comes to the golf question, I would have liked to have seen a question that said, how many of you live on the golf course? How many of you would have bought in Oakmont if you didn't have a golf course to buy on with a view? And how many of you feel it's a value in terms of your property value?
Again, I agree with you, totally. And the idea was to keep the questionnaire under 20 minutes for people to fill out. What this does not mean this is the last questionnaire that we're ever going to do, and I have a feeling that a golf questionnaire like this, with these wonderful questions that you've come up with, and other people have come up with some other ones, should come up eventually, because, you know, data-driven decisions really does help. And if the more information that we can get, I mean, from my perspective, I don't play golf. I love it here because there's all that open space. And so, you know, it might not be the golf issue, it might be the open space issue. That's okay. You know, whatever floats our boats.
I just wanted to add that, yes, we were limited in how many questions we could ask in order to have a reasonable survey that was actually doable by people, or it could have been 100 pages long if we got every question answered that we had. What this points out is that this research doesn't just end today. It's going to have to go on on a rolling basis, and we're going to have to revisit things again, or delve deeper into some of the issues or opportunities that are raising more questions, and golf is certainly one of those. We've known that from the beginning.
I have a comment, but I guess after what she said, there will be more questions, but the golf was left out. I know it was mentioned just a moment ago. The golf was left out of the use of facilities by children. And had the golf been on there, it should have been on there, because the golf course during the summer months has 2 wonderful grandchildren's weeks that promote it, as long as the tennis does. And then when you were talking about facility use, you had the east, the fitness center, the west. The west has been, for several years now, and I was on the long-range planning when it went on, the west became the exercise building. So when you think of use of the west, it is all morning, and the table tennis, it's not just for meetings and parties. So the west was sort of left out of the fitness part of exercise and use here. I think that needs to be separated out.
I'll talk to you afterwards because I'm not quite clear, and I would love to do the analysis by that way if I possibly can. Other questions, thoughts before we continue?
Yeah, I've got one. Do it like that. Okay, so I understand that one of the things when you're constructing a survey like this is a concern with the effect of the order of the questions. For example, if you ask people if they want to spend money on burger, you're likely to get a different answer if you've asked already about their finances and increases in assessments, or if you haven't asked them that question yet. Did you have multiple versions of the electronic survey so that you could test that sensitivity?
No.
Okay, so we should be aware of that.
80% of men have doctorates here.
Yeah, and then that, good, that's what I was curious about. And then the other question I meant to ask earlier, we had focus groups, and I recall that we were told those were being recorded and transcribed, and I was wondering where interested residents can read those transcripts. I understood they were going to be anonymized and then transcribed.
Thank you. We are in the process of writing the final report that integrates all the different phases of research, and when that report is ready, all the material that goes with it, including the written transcripts of focus groups, will be made available.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we continue on. Dues and assessment. Now, we asked about the Burger Center before we ever asked about dues. So you'll see that 40% said, oh, please, nothing more. 60% said, yes, sure. 35% said $10. I thought I had a little other thing. 35% said $10, 13, 20, 5% said 30, 3% 40, and 4% said $50 or more. So that's 60% of people who are willing to take a wee bit of an increase in dues. Okay, willingness for special assessment. Again, 36% said no, 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 no. And the rest were somewhat willing or very willing to have a special assessment for a particular new project. 55% gave us a dollar amount that they'd be willing to spend for that special assessment. I'm also, from what the students said, people didn't really understand the concept of a special assessment. And considering that 44% of people had not been here in the last 5 years, they may not have really understood what special assessments are. But, you know, 55% gave us a dollar amount. Most common answer was 100, ranged from $5,000 to $10,000. The mean, the average amount was $512. However, that's because people said $5,000 and $10,000, and that raised everything up. But the most common answer was $100. Okay, the next is what's happening at the OBA? What do people use to get information about Oakmont? Well, the newspaper, 97%, e-blast, 45%, which is amazing since it's only been going for a year. Social media, website, calling the office, online videos, and then people wrote in some interesting sources that they have. Friends and neighbors, Kenwood Press, Press Democrat, clubs, meetings, and then of course walking your dog out on the polo field. So, how hard is it to get information about Oakmont? Evidently, it's pretty easy. 94% said it was easy or very easy. We asked how many people had interactions with people at the OVA office, and 90% of us have had an interaction in the last year with the office. We then asked them how good or bad was it, and we have 94% that are happy as little clams with the OVA office. There is 6% who's not happy. And then we asked about the hours. You know, is 9 to 5 enough time for people? Because we do have people who work. And, you know, so we said, you know, how is the 9 to 5 workable? And it was for 96% of the people, and of the 4% that it wasn't workable for, the most exciting, or the answer that they said the most was, I'd love a weekend day. Because trying to get here after work, and, you know, we had people write in stories to us, actually. Okay, and of course we couldn't ask about the office without asking about the board, so how happy are you with board leadership? And 10% are dissatisfied or very dissatisfied, and everybody else either has no opinion or is happy campers. So are there any questions about dues or services or anything like that? All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Very good.
If this survey can be sort of a benchmark, in the future, will you be able to measure trends? For example, is the board going downhill or uphill?
Yes, we can. That's the joy of doing these kinds of data and then asking similar questions through the years, is that you can look at trends over time. Okay, I'm going to give you a little information. It's probably more than you want to know, but just in case. We're at the very end. We probably have 5 more minutes of slides, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the methods, because there's going to be questions, and people are going to ask you about, well, you know, is this really a representative survey? And there's so many people you didn't get in touch with, and those 4,620 people, why didn't they all participate? Well, some of them don't live here. Some of them live in the gardens. Some of them have summer homes here. Some people were in Europe during the time that we did the study. So, you know, there's lots of different reasons why people were unable to participate or didn't participate. They don't consider themselves residents, although they own a place here and they don't rent it out. So they're not non-resident landlords, but they are, which we did do a survey in January of them. But they still don't consider themselves, you know, full-time residents here. So the denominator, the lower number that you divide things by to figure out what the percent is of response rate, is in question. So that's the first one we did. And then, just so you know, we had 1,639 emails to start with. We handed out 440 surveys. I got a lot of requests for you know, my husband didn't get the email because he didn't give you his email address, and would you please send him a link to the survey? Or I all of a sudden realized you didn't have my email address, could you send me a link? So I sent about 200 more links. And so then we had 1,112 letters, 12 letters to households without email. And remember, 2/3 of those households probably have 2 members. Maybe, maybe not. So our total contacts that we had with people, potential denominator, using this methodology would be 3,391. Now this is flawed too, but when you don't have a denominator, you try to do these things, try to figure out what the response rate is. But that makes the response rate up to 48%. On the online responses, now how good was that? We had 1,639, we added another 200. We did some home visits, and those were done online. And then we had 3 reminders. So we got 1,250 individuals who responded. Now, people said, well, they're going to stuff the ballot box. Well, one of the nice things about having a survey that's longer than a minute is people are less inclined to stuff the ballot box. And we were able to check and do some, diagnostics to see if we had ballot box stuffers. And the only thing we had was when the Wi-Fi went out, they had to start all over again. So we had to remove those from the database. And so we were able to find them all and remove the dupes from the database. So my perception, we didn't have a single ballot stuffer. Could be wrong, don't tell me. Oh, so doing it this way, we had a 67% response rate for just the emails. People who got a paper survey, they went out, they either were given a paper survey or chose to do a paper survey. 389 of the 440 returned it. And that's after 2 reminder calls. And that gives us an 88% response rate of those people. Now you had to want to take the survey, realistically. You didn't want it, it isn't gonna happen. So one of the questions that, before we get to the seniors, anonymity. Everybody was worried about anonymity. Some people wouldn't take the survey because I had their email address. What we did was, yes, we had the email address. Yes, we kept track of it until the survey was over, and then it all went away. There's no email address attached with any of the data anymore. It's all gone. Then you say, well, okay, the surveys, you want me to put my name and address and phone number down. Well, those pieces of paper, with that, they're gone. There is no way you can go back and figure out who answered what. And I want, if nothing else from this, I would love it if you would pass that on to people. So the next time we do a survey, we'll have more people participate knowing that it's going to be, your anonymity will be protected. Last but not least, we had 4 senior nursing students from Sonoma. They put in 280 hours, and I was with them every single hour. They did 6 phone surveys, 6 home visits, 18 in-person interviews, and 126 reminder calls. Now, the 30 people that had phone, home visits, and in-person interviews, they would never have participated in the study if we didn't have a nursing student. Because they couldn't have. They couldn't see, they had tremors, they couldn't have filled out a survey themselves, no matter what. They handed out 208 paper surveys, but because they were so young, the most important thing they learned about being around here for the 3 weeks is we're not our illnesses. We're very vibrant, active grown-ups. And they're sort of, by the end of the time, they were sitting there going, And that's what I wanted them to come away with. I wanted them to understand when we're all in the hospital someday, hopefully not very often, that, you know, that almost naked person with a little opening down the back who's feeling so terrible was, you know, maybe have been on the golf course last week or, you know, any of the other things that we do here. So I think it was good. I don't know if I would do it again, but well, we'll just have to see. Okay. We moved through this very quickly. But we're available for the next, you know, half an hour or so. If you have questions, you want to come up afterwards and ask us, you know, any particular questions. Now, do we have an analysis based upon these things? There's more analyses that we're doing. This is the 60 plus page report that, you know, you only got a taste of it, and we're still doing it, but it will eventually be for everybody to see. I mean, we're trying for ultimate transparency so you know what's going on. Okay, questions?
Thank you all very much. I just wanted to mention that we'll be putting this slide deck up on the website, so hopefully you didn't try to scribble down all those numbers. You will have a way to go back and check them and look through it at your leisure as well. Thanks. Questions? If you have a question, let's see, how many people have questions? What's your question? The website will be the Oakmont Village website.
You're doing your knee thing today.
oakmontvillage.com in the next couple of days. Okay, if you have any other questions, come up and talk.
I'd just like to thank you and your committee for all the time and for volunteering. Thank you.